my other streams to AV1 encoding. Curious to see how it looks. And then with Twitch, I'm using the enhanced broadcasting thing. But the downside is that it's very limited in what you can adjust. So it's kind of frustrating to use. But the alternative would be only having one quality level. Because, I mean, Twitch and Amazon are so tied up for money that they can't do transcoding for most people. So, unpin this thing. Alright. So in my case, I have to transcode my own stuff and then upload all of it. But I just wish that were a more functional feature. Right. So we've got some of the stuff going here. I'm gonna have to look to the side to actually edit this thing. How I have it set up. Bunch of pictures. There we go. So I mentioned this 10 billion times, but basically how this works is that I have a full-length video, usually. And that's my main piece of work. The first thing that I make, and then I base highlight video off of it using AI tools these days to help me clip it up. And it's decent. It's not too bad at that. So just specifically Gemini Pro in the Google AI Studio thing, so it's free. Basically, I give it caption data, clips it based on that, and then I make a website article, which is what this is, using the same tools. So I give it the actual YouTube video, I give it the captions that are cleaned and fixed up, and it creates, I give it some direction potentially, and the specific one, I gave it more context of my own writing style. So what I did was I made a tool in Visual Studio. I could show that real quick. This is just yesterday. But I'm not totally sure if it made a huge difference. It seems maybe a little bit better. Oops. Keeps opening on the other screen. It's probably going to be covered. Yeah. There we go. So this is Visual Studio programming. C# programming. .NET. Version 8 specifically for this one. So again, there isn't like a huge reason for me to write code much by hand anymore because I've been using the Gemini Pro thing to basically write the code. And that's where this came from. And what this does, maybe I should not get into programming on this stream, but what this does is take an export from Blogger, which is the thing that I use for my websites now. It's Google owned. It's pretty simple, functional enough. It's not amazingly flexible or anything, but it works, and it's cheaper than the WordPress hosting that I was doing before that. Anyways, you can export Atom XML file with all of your articles, and I did that, but I wanted to just get the titles and the article text, so I could potentially give this thing more context of how I write, so it would hopefully do that. And I was thinking of trying to use that again, but create a style document to better give like a stronger plan or just a stronger direction for writing style. That might make more sense and it'd be smaller context. So maybe I could do that in a little bit. See if it's able to do that. But anyways, this script or program, it's a Windows program. It basically cleans up and extracts and cleans up the titles and the article text and put it in one big document. And then I gave that whole document to one of the chat things. At this point, I don't really care about training and if it's trained to my stuff, I don't care at this point. I mentioned it before, but I've already had some of my video captions placed into the pile or whatever it's called. And that I didn't have any say in that. So, I mean, technically, I was not thrilled at the time. And I'm still not thrilled about that because I didn't have a choice in it. But it is what it is at this point. However, I will say if there's ever a class action lawsuit, I would like to be compensated for my work. It's not to say that using this stuff now relates to when people use my stuff without permission. Totally separate. Because this is my choice to do it at this point. For this stuff specifically, not for the stuff that other people have used tools to extract and use without permission. Yeah, so pretty simple. Cleans up the HTML inside the article text. That's pretty much it. Pulls that, pulls the titles. And then this Atom file is XML, so it's structured. And it's not difficult really to deal with XML and especially C#.NET programming because it has built-in tools and there's a bunch of third-party libraries you can use as well that are easily integrated into a program. It's pretty simple in that regard. Yeah. That's what that is. All right. So I've just been going through this and trying to make it sound decent and add the pictures and stuff. Or, screen captures from the video. I was recently sent a Hanji leather pen case from an ad agency that wanted me to do something with it. What better way to feature a product like that than to do a full product photo shoot? In this article, I talk about, I walk you through the entire process from the equipment I use to various scenes I set up and the challenges I faced along the way. I wouldn't necessarily say it like that. From the equipment I used to the various scenes I set up and the challenges process. All right. What was that thing called? Style guide? I'm thinking of that other thing. Because I have a book of it. Anyways, maybe I'll look at that in a bit. All right, so we've got the YouTube video with the link for people that prefer unembedded. We have a Amazon affiliate link. These are YouTube video links to other related stuff. The product itself is a very nice roll-up style case. On the inside, it has two different areas for pens or pencils with protective flaps. At the top, there's also a zippered pouch for other small items. To keep it closed, a long leather strap wraps around the case. My goal for the photo shoot was to feature all of these different aspects in the final photos. Equipment. Here's equipment I use for the photo shoot. These are B&H affiliate links I earned from qualifying purchases. So these are very important. The pen case. It's a relatively small product, and to get those detailed close-up shots of stitching and texture, I need to get closer than my normal lens would allow. Closer than my lenses would normally allow. Micro tubes are a great alternative if you don't have a dedicated macro lens for your camera system. Close-up of the macro extension tubes held in hand. I think it's a little too literal with description. So the AI is actually coming up. It completely comes up with those picture titles based on what it sees in the photo. It's pretty cool. I mean, it might kind of reference the caption data too. But I've seen at times where it is clearly looking at the picture or looking at the frame. My lighting setup is a dedicated area I have arranged for this kind of work. It consists of 2 continuous lights. Key light. So I can make these a bullet point. Key light to Wii-Light Ninja 20 with a large softbox. This is a constant light. Technically for videography, but it works perfectly well for photos. I had it set to 20% power, which was plenty. This is the maximum the low fan setting. Fill backlight, panel light, and LED panel light positioned higher up on the other side of the table, pushing light downwards from the back. Somewhat. This is kind of maybe not correct, but I left it in there. So clamshell style is usually 2 in the front, but mine is like different. But I mean, technically it's clamshell, it's just from down, kind of side down. I would assume at some point, someday, someone's going to call me out on that in the video. But I mean, it's a interaction, so I guess I shouldn't care too much. Anyways, this gives me results I'm happy with in my limited space. Creative space. Both lights were set to a color temperature of 5600 Kelvin. I matched the setting in the camera to get a good baseline for color. Close up with the Waylight Ninja 20. The panel lights on the other side of the table. So my idea with using that term is that when you're projecting light mostly downwards onto the table, I feel like they're kind of clamshell, but they're skewed. Props and background materials. To create different scenes, I used a variety of materials I picked up from Michael's the craft store. Foam sheets. I had 2 large sheets of foam, one brown and one gray. These turned out to be my favorite materials for the shoot. Background materials. Absorber light. Yeah, I don't think I would use that word. Well, provide a very different texture compared to paper, giving it a nice smooth transition from the table surface to the wall. Cardstock, I had some small squares of colored cardstock and one with a map printed on it. The map was the United States, which didn't really make sense with a Korean pen case, but I took a few test shots anyways. Pens and pencils, gathered various pens I had on hand. Favorite was a wooden pen, which looked a bit more high class. I also used some of my favorite two favorites in the same thing. The best option was a wooden pen, which looked a bit more high class. I also used some of my favorite Zebra branded pens. Other props to show off the zippered pouch. I used tiny Polaroid Go photos. Also used gaffer tape. It's kind of separate. Well, case. Gaffer tape, often used in television, film, and photography production. Gaffer tape is a heavy-duty cotton cloth tape with... That's kind of not true. So you can see that it's... Just take that out. Heavy duty cotton cloth tape. Its key feature is that it can be removed cleanly from most surfaces without leaving behind a sticky residue, making it ideal for temporary wearily. Securing cables, props, and backdrops. Gonna take off that. Gray and brown foam sheets. I've already gone through this, that's why there's so many typos. Hand. Okay, yeah, this is very descriptive. I need to change the prompts for these. Colored cardstock paper. Variety of pens, including Silver Zebra branded pens. Staging the scenes and compositions. Okay, so here's a point where I haven't modified this. With all the equipment and materials ready, I start building different scenes. The process is to just start taking photos to get motivated and let ideas develop as I go. Okay. Simple compositions. It's a very short section. I started simple, just photographing the product with this packaging. Nothing too exciting, but it's a good way to warm up and start thinking about angles and lighting. So you can see that it wants me to, or it gave an option for an image there. And I have those. Oops, I guess I can leave it over here. I can put it here. So these are the ones that it suggested I extract from the video, and I have a script for that, no surprise, where I get a bunch of time codes and then I put it into the video editor and it creates JPEG images with a watermark. So if we look at the numbers here, it says number 10. So this is number 10. And I can drag that into here and make it a little bit bigger. And here's its suggested caption. says a top-down photo of the pen case lying next to its light green packaging box on a black surface. So just imagine, this was not in my video. It's not in the text of my video. So the AI is literally looking at this frame, understanding that this is a box, understanding that this is a green box, and understanding it's on a black surface. So that's pretty impressive, in my opinion. And then understanding the context of what it's doing, what the goal was in this specific case, which is pretty obscure when you think about it, based on all the other stuff it's trying to do at the same time. Yeah, that's really cool. All right, using backdrops. Next, I moved on to using the backdrop materials. Tried the colored cardstock, and decided on a purple one, which I think created a nice color combination with the teal of the pen case. Because the cardstock was small, I had to get very close, which made keeping everything in focus a challenge. Yeah. Focus stacking. This is a digital image processing technique that combines multiple images taken at different focus distances to give a resulting image with a greater depth of field than any of the individual source images. For macro and product photography, where depth of field is naturally very shallow, focus stacking is often necessary to render the entire subject in focus. All right. So I had mentioned this in the video that I didn't do it. So in this case, I'm going to do a quote, and then I usually italicize it. All right. Number 11. Put that in here. Large. Oops. Got our caption. Close-up photo of the teal pen case on a purple cardstock background. I'm saying here another option might be small apertures, but that has its own set of downsides, like the potential of diffraction and the need for long exposure times. Let me put that, and put it here. The foam sheets were my favorite to work with. Brown foam gave the photos a warm look, while the gray was more neutral. Foam absorbs light. I don't think I would have used the word lovely. Foam absorbs light so well and creates a smooth, non-reflective background. The sheets weren't quite as large as I would have liked, which limited some of my compositions, but they worked. Yeah, this is not working out amazingly well in that respect. Use a small USB power bank to prop the case up into different positions. So we got image number 12. All right. Very nice. That's correct. Nicely positioned example. Photo showing the pen case resting against gray foam backdrop. Kind of. Hidden USB power brick. So I got this wrong. I should say adapter. That'll make a bit more sense. So we got number 13 here. This one's good as well. Might as well include it. Photo showing the pen case standing upright. Whoops, that looks weird. Portion of the pen case with brown foam as backdrop. Telling a use case story. It's a pretty long article. To give potential customers an idea of how the case could be used, I started adding props. Placed my wooden pen case and other pens into the slots. Put the little Polaroid photos into the zippered pouch, showing its capacity. Yeah, this isn't really writing like I would, I don't think. Would I use the word capacity? Number 14. That is not useful. This one's good though. So you got the little Polaroid Go photos. Some pens. Very nice. There's Gudetama. Egg Dude. I haven't worn my Gudetama shirt in quite a while. I mean, it's not a bad example, but I don't think it fits in that area. I could potentially put it somewhere else. Maybe I'll put it here. The limited area I had to work with. Photo showing multiple pens and small Polaroid Go pictures arranged in and around the side of the case. I also used macro tubes. That was one of the macro photos. Like stitching, highlighting craftsmanship. Let me see if it... Okay, yeah, that's not bad. It did a nice job of pulling frames this time. Sometimes it doesn't do super well with that. Macro photo. My voice is complaining. Macro photo showing the fine stitching detail on the flaps of the pen case. That's not really the flaps. The flaps are down there. So didn't really understand what I was seeing there. On the what are those even called? Slots. All right, last picture. This is not one of the most amazing photos, but it gets the point across. My favorite setup from a visual perspective was creating a use case story, as I had called it, which is true. I used some NASA-themed coloring pages. Probably months back, maybe last year, I don't know. A set of colored pencils and a pencil sharpener. The goal was to build a scene that tells a story about what you could potentially do with this pen case. Creates a vibrant, let's not use that word, creates a colorful scene that showcases the product in action. Highlighting the pen slots with colored pencils. Colorful colored pencils. Let's say, whoops. How's it going? Rate your photos? I don't know. I have links disabled on my chat, so I wouldn't say that I'm a skilled photographer, so I don't know if my feedback would be super helpful. You can tell me your Instagram, like just the name of it, not the link, and I'll take a look at it. How's that? Because like I said, if you put links in the chat thing, it'll block it automatically. Oh, you don't have an Instagram? Do you have another website, social media, like Flickr? Oh, TikTok? What's the TikTok name? Let's see, highlighting the pen slots with colored pencils and... All right, I'll take a look. It's a very interesting username. Some of the older ones are a bit bad. Well, we'll take a look and see. TikTok /@. So I'm gonna look at them off stream first. Whoops, I missed the character here. All right. There we go. So, first one's fine. Let's just assume you and the guys. I don't want to show them on stream. That might be kind of rude for you. But the second one with the flower is nice. I can see your edit. That's cool. I actually like the very centered framing for that one. The yellow flower. Very nice. Has a good amount of detail to it. Are you using a macro lens? Or it says, oh, take it on your phone. Okay. Yeah, very nice. I like that you're doing the before and after edit thing. Because there's definitely a difference for the flower one. I'll show it on screen for a second. If you want me to do that. But, let's see what else we've got. So you went to some type of race course? Oh, you don't mind? Okay. Whoops. Pause that. I have to hide this. All right. So there's the flower. I like this one. In this, like I said, in this specific case, I really like the central framing. This does add a little bit of difference between the different areas. So maybe in the future, think what you could potentially do with stuff in the background if you weren't. So you're saying the car one was a sim racing photo. Oh, okay. So it's a... Okay. I see. Oh, yeah, that looks surprisingly realistic for a video game. So you got the flower again, another flower. This one's a little offset. That's fine. Good amount of detail. Your phone seems to do well with that. I would assume you probably maybe increase sharpness and such. But it looks good. Let's see what else we got. Okay, so you've got a before and after. I assume this is a video game. Well, no, this might be a real. That looks real. Because those look like real cars. So. All manual focus and shutter speed. Okay. Yeah, that was IRL. Learning to grade photos part 2. So we got some, also using a phone app. That's cool. I'm so used to using the computer to do edits. So we got some horses here. Color grade part 1. Whoops. I don't know how I turn this thing off from changing the picture on me. So what app is that? Is that like Adobe's mobile Photoshop thing? This thing with the horse? I'm not super familiar with, or maybe it's just the Google one? Yeah, I haven't seen this one. Lightroom mobile. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just see that in the hashtag on the side there. All right, Lightroom mobile. I'm not super familiar these days with Adobe stuff because I didn't like the whole software as a service thing. So I'm old enough that there was a period of time when Adobe was just selling software on the computer as you pay once and that's it. And then it's a certain version of it. But they moved to what's called software as a service. I don't know if this is free or paid. I would assume it comes with some type of monthly plan or something, which is fine if you're okay with it. But the program I use now is Affinity Photo, which is similar to Photoshop. I'm gonna get rid of those. Oh, you don't have the funds for it? Too expensive? Yeah, I agree. I'm not a big fan of that monthly payment thing, though. Oh, so your computer isn't powerful enough. I see. Yeah. So you're saying for standard Lightroom or Lightroom Classic or whatever it's called, or I think there's a Lightroom Classic, and then there's like a Lightroom something else. I'm not super familiar with their stuff at this point. But this one's called Affinity Photo. They currently stopped selling this for some reason because the company got bought out. But there are some alternatives, like free open source alternatives that you could potentially look at if at some point you get a computer that is more capable. Which I think in the land of like editing photos and stuff, you don't need a super impressive computer. Like maybe a decent laptop, something like that could be decent. So you're saying your phone, pretty high-end phone, ChatGPT, said it's as powerful as an i7. Is it like an iPhone or Samsung, something like that? Yeah, it depends. Sometimes the phone stuff is good for media, like editing video, editing photos. It's able to encode or decode stuff pretty quickly because it has like built-in hardware on the phone to do that. Just because my phone shoots 8K 30 frames a second log. Oh wow, okay. So it needs something with a fair bit of power to edit that. S25 Ultra, okay, so Samsung. Yeah, I don't know if you would honestly ever anytime soon need 8K video. I do mostly 4K for hands-on stuff, but anything that I'm doing like talking to the camera is 1080p. Yeah, it messes with your storage. Yeah, definitely. hmm Log footage and such is fun to edit, but it's so huge. Personally don't do a lot of that stuff. I do just standard HTAT265 encoding, and then it's called 4-bit, or I don't even do 10-bit, but then 422 color space, or whatever it's called, chroma subsampling, I think. Okay, you modify, I'll do 4K. It is just large to use, yeah. Okay, let's see some of your other photos here. Got a bike. Okay, trying to do some action photos. So this is going to be challenging for you with a phone, probably. Okay, you're saying 200 megapixel raw photos. 600 megabytes. Yeah, that's a lot. Like the actual use of something like that, I don't know. Because the resolution is cool, but the sensor is only going to be so large. So the amount of light hitting a tiny sensor is only going to give you so much detail. Like with physics and stuff. Oh, spelling is all good. Yeah. So with action photos on the phone, you mentioned that you're able to change the shutter speed. So you can kind of play with the shutter speeds potentially to 1/2.5 inch sensor. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of... I assume that you're young enough that you probably didn't use the little cameras. For example, this is kind of the era of little cameras. This specific camera was from, I think, 2006. So the size of sensor in here is probably pretty similar to what's in your phone now, the 1/2.5 inch. But this specifically has a large zoom lens on it. I don't have a battery in here, so it won't turn on, but the lens, it kind of extends, is what I'm saying on here. But yeah, it's probably a similar size sensor to this thing. So for a picture like this, action is difficult in general to do, but as long as you can adjust the shutter speed, you can mess around with it and get some interesting stuff with action. Yeah, you can't change the aperture because it's a fixed aperture on like the vast majority of phones. So it's like a f1.8 or whatever usually in a phone. It's basically the hole in there that the light goes through. And then I don't know the math, but the f1.8 or f2 or whatever is there's some math involved if you want to learn about it. We can look at Wikipedia. Aperture. Yeah, so this is a nice example. So with your phone, it's going to be set to a certain opening size based on how large the sensor is and such in the focal length. So obviously the smaller number here is going to be a larger opening relatively. And then f8, smaller opening. Kind of cool. So one thing you might be able to do is that if you add an add-on to your phone, for example, this thing I made a video on a while back. This is an add-on for a phone. Oh, you think that 1.4 for your 1X. Okay. 2.8 for the telephoto. ND filters, polarizers. Yeah. So this is a wide angle conversion, I think. Let me see. Whoops. Oh, here it is. 0.45x wide angle. So this wouldn't necessarily be useful to you, but things like this are an option. If you, I would assume you, considering you're using filters, you probably have something like this already. But I do have a video on this that I went over trying it out on my YouTube channel. It's kind of fun. It's not these things aren't super practical, but at the very least you can mess around with more stuff on your phone without having to get into dedicated cameras. Let's see. See if we've got anything else on your account here that looks interesting to talk about. So you did some video with skiing, looks like. Yeah. Stuff, I especially liked that yellow flower picture. This one, I don't know if you took these or just did grading. This one's a little strong, but it's cool. I like that one. It's a nice photo too, as well. I would have maybe adjusted the framing a little bit, but it looks like it's not in the United States. So maybe you're just using that one. So you say you do portraits. I'm sorry, I'm reading a tiny little. This is where my chat screen is. So I've got 3 screens and 2 different streams going on. So you're saying took all the photos apart from the race car. Okay. Nice. Yeah, I like this. I like this one a lot. This one's nice. Portraits mostly. Family. Yeah, you should be careful posting like family photos publicly. Just in case. Always ask your parents or whatever. I'm just assuming age. If you crop, you can see some of the hidden details. Yeah, yeah. Right? So even phones, you'll have a nice amount of stuff, like you said, for cropping that could be good. And learn more about composition with that. If you like a framing, or you're not able to get get close enough or whatever, that is good to do some cropping in post. All right. Yeah, I don't really have any other suggestions, but I'd say the one of that street was my favorite, but I like this one as well, the flower one. Very nice. All right. Yeah, the downside of phones, like you mentioned, is it's got a fixed aperture usually. There's maybe a handful of phones that have 2 different apertures for one camera module, but it's pretty rare. If we look at, trying to think of what GSM Arena, it shows phone details. So this one, S25. So here's the ultra version. Whoops. This is the mobile website. There we go. So I don't remember if you mentioned Ultra or the regular one, but it looks like the Ultra has an f1.7 24 millimeter equivalent, 1/1.3 inch. Yeah, Ultra. This is the 2025 version. I don't know if they have different year versions with the same name. but it looks like 200 megapixel, which realistically, I would never use a 200 megapixel photo like that, but it might be fun to look at the very least. So the PDAF is phase detect autofocus. So it's better than contrast based usually, especially for video autofocus. And then OAS is the optical stabilization. And then it's got a 10 megapixel f2.4 telephoto, so it's one of 3.52. And then here you can see this. I can zoom in here. Whoops. That's not going to work. Reset. There we go. Where was that? Whoops. So we've got the 1.12 UM. That's the... Geez, I'm trying to think of the terms for that. Anyways, I'm not even sure what I'm showing here with that zoom in. Whoops. There we go. But this is like the size of the photo sites on the sensor. So each little thing that reads the light coming in is pretty small on this main one because it's 200 megapixel. So it's 0.6. Let me get a term here. So it's micrometer, the UM. All right, so it's 0.6 micrometer versus 1.2 with the telephoto photo sites. Yeah, micrometer. So it looks like you already know. All right. So it looks like the telephoto's actual things that read the light coming in are bigger. So that's cool. But of course you don't get as much resolution out of it. Okay, it's got a periscope telephoto. That's neat. I don't know if you've looked into like the tech of these periscope telephotos, but it's really cool. They use geez, what are those called? Prisms and stuff inside there to move adjust the light coming in and such. It's really cool. So that's a 5x. Yeah, amount of technology in the camera modules. Yeah. I generally watch quite a few tech videos. Some of them go into that much detail. There's always Jerry Break Everything, that guy. He breaks apart the phones. I assume you've seen his YouTube channel. And he's taken apart some of these periscope optic things or camera modules. Yeah, very cool. You could definitely do a lot with the phone. It looks like you're trying to get the most out of it, which is great. In a 2x1 inch space, they have to fit 4 camera sensors. Oh, laser autofocus module. Yeah, right. I don't know which one does laser autofocus, but this one's got phase detect. So it's reading multiple pixels. There's probably a better description on Wikipedia or something. Oops. Phase detection. Yeah. So here's a nice little descriptor of how it works. So it says purple skyline represents the object being focused on. The red and green lines represent light rays passing through apertures on opposite sides of the lens. And then the camera processing and stuff looks at the two different points and adjusts the position of the lens elements, the ones that move for focusing. It's very cool. Oh man. Yeah. Anyways, it's nice to see you're getting into the technology side and understanding your equipment enough to really get the most out of it. It looks like that's cool. But besides that, maybe if you haven't, could consider looking to see if there's any add-on lenses. One of my affiliates, I don't do much with them, but Moment, I'm pretty sure they have quite a few add-on lenses. And they probably have a custom case for your specific phone. Oh, you want to get an actual camera? Have you been thinking about what style of photography and stuff you want to get? You mentioned portraits. So, and there's the various companies. I use this Z5 right now. So this is Z5 from Nikon. In America, that we say Nikon, but I tend to say Nikon. Z5, this is one of the cheaper full frame cameras, but you can imagine, you're saying you want to go Sony. So it has a full frame sensor. Yeah. And then, yeah, it's a 35 millimeter film equivalent of a digital. This is a Sony A7S. This is an older video focused camera. So it's got the same size sensor. This one I bought used pretty cheap. It's 12 megapixel. It is contrast-based autofocus, but it's still pretty fun to use. I actually have done more photography with this thing than I have video. But I tend to use this as a background camera too for video. I have a setup back here that sometimes I use this thing in there. This is just the cheapest lens that I could find that's a standard zoom. It's not an amazing lens, but it's functional enough. So this is a 24 to 70 millimeter f4, where f4 is the maximum aperture through the zoom range. But so for example, I wouldn't recommend this camera, but it is cheap, and it would be fun to go mess around with, I'm sure. For example, if you want to consider used cameras, there are a lot of reasonable options that you could look at. So if you wanted to go Sony, we've got Sony FE, which is the full frame stuff. And then we can sort, let me see if I can sort by price. Let's go 500 max. So here's this is the one that I have. Again, it's more video focused, but it's fully functional for pictures. Oh, you're saying the KNF competition I completed gets people with the Sony 3S A7 III, maybe? And I somehow have no idea how I won. Oh, nice. That's cool. Yeah. Take that's a good example of the what's in the photo matters so much more than what's taking the photo usually. Obviously there's going to be some quality difference, there's going to be some benefits like controlling aperture and stuff like that, but yeah, if you're able to win contests with the smartphone photo, that's great. That means you're probably focusing more on composition or color grading and stuff like you were talking about. But yeah, I think having a dedicated camera is good, but you can still do a lot with your phone like you've been doing. So here's one example. This is that video focused A7S. It's not anything special, but it works. And like I said, it's 12 megapixel, which is pretty low, but it's a full frame camera. And that's 244, no lens. Oh, you have no idea how he pulled off the... Okay. Yeah, it worked though. So probably not... Oh no, this one is not functional. So it would probably cost more than that. Yeah, you have to be careful with used cameras. Just be sure to read condition and make sure it's working. Let's look at the A7 II. This is probably a better option. So in this case, it's going to be $489 just for the camera, no lens. It's kind of expensive. You could probably get an APS-C sized sensor camera instead and go that route. But this is a full frame camera. It's quite a bit older and it looks pretty rough in the photos here. Yeah, I don't think I would go for that thing. KEH. So this is another used camera option. And generally, the stuff that's functional, you get a 6-month warranty with these guys. So if we look at the mirrorless cameras again, let's go to Sony. Just going to check the full frame stuff first. So that's the original A7. Probably not the best option. Here's the A7 II, A7S II. It does get pretty expensive quick. I don't know if it's because of tariffs or what, but man, these are pretty expensive. And this is used equipment. Yeah, it's cheap is a good starting point, usually. I don't know what cheap would be to you. Like, what price range? You could even consider an old DSLR. That might be a good option. But then you'll kind of be stuck there because you can always resell it, but you won't necessarily get as much. Now, 300 pounds or so, 300. Okay, so UK. 450. Yeah. So you probably have to get something APS-C potentially, because you obviously want a lens or two, and those are going to be expensive as well. But maybe in your area, you don't have to deal with as much of the bad pricing that we're getting in the United States right now. It's really bad with the government and the stupid tariff things. So cameras here have just like gone crazy with pricing. And it makes no sense too, because there's no way some camera company is going to start making cameras in the United States. It's stupid. Frustrating from a photographer's perspective. You can get a Canon EOS 400D for 20 pounds. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's good. Actually, I made a video on, I think it was the 20D from Canon. And that was probably around that price at the time. Might be more expensive now. Are they any good? I mean, it's relative. Let's see if they have. I don't know if they'll show that. $450D. It would, at the very least, it would be fun to try and use, get the most out of it. And you could definitely get nice photos out of it, but it's going to be an older experience. I mean, like a old technology experience with the autofocus. How the autofocus works on a DSLR usually is going to be, it's a whole separate system inside there. Now, some of the newer DSLRs, you could do live view. And that's similar to a phone, that's similar to cameras like this, the mirrorless ones. But I don't know if this camera is new enough to have live view. Let me look at 400D. Whoops. It doesn't look like that has live view. Maybe. But it looks like some type of weird firmware hack or something to get live view on that. Okay, it's the Rebel XTI in the United States, it looks like. Whoops. So that would be this one. Let me go to my YouTube channel real quick. A Canon 50D, 15 megapixel. Yeah, it's hard to say because you're not used to using that era of technology, right? So technically, yeah, you can get really nice photos from it, but it's going to be, which I think it might be a good thing, is that it's going to be challenging for you potentially to get really good photos from it. And then there will be things to consider with low light. Obviously, the older sensor technology isn't going to be as good in low light, especially with how your phone, for example, you don't see any of this, but when you take a low light photo, it's combining like a huge number of frames behind the scenes to make it look good. And obviously the old camera is not going to do that, or any cameras, no cameras do that type of thing. Yeah, you're saying because I don't think there is much more I can get out of your phone. Okay. Yeah. You probably will be surprised though, and if you buy something like that, in the quality level, depending on the situation, either for the good or for the bad. But I think it would be worth trying a super cheap DSLR, like the 50-pound one. So, for example, I can show you one of my old videos. I think it was a 20D. Yeah. Share. Copy this. So, oops, where's my chat window? Did I get that right? Make sure that link works.
So I'm writing an essay on cats.
This is a video I made back 5 years ago. And it's a 20D that I bought used just out of curiosity. And it was a process to get through it.
Oh, no.
Mute that. So you might find this video interesting to look at. So I go through the process. I had to fix some things and adjust the autofocus. And I talk about the focus system. Anyways, it might be helpful to you just to get an idea of what you might have to deal with if you buy one of those cameras. But honestly, it was pretty fun to use. I don't have it anymore because I sold it back to a company at one point. But yeah, that's kind of a similar idea. But I think you mentioned the 50D or something. That's going to be nicer than this one. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Okay, yeah, you mentioned the 50D. That's going to be nicer than this camera. Like more functional. Okay, look at 50D versus 20D. Let's see if there's a website for that. Okay, so that's 15 megapixel. Has a higher or a larger ISO range. Nice larger screen. No video mode. Yeah, so the 50D you mentioned doesn't have video. Just know that that's happening. Oh, thanks. Yeah. I do a bunch of random stuff on here. So not all of it is photography and such, but yeah, so no video mode, but for photography, this honestly looks like it would be fun to try out and use. It is APS-C sensor, so that's smaller than these ones. I could show an example. The ISO range sucks. After 800, it gets grainy. It's going to be the same situation with these, pretty much. Like this era of, I mean, sensor technology has improved a good amount, but it's, I mean, 1600, 3200, there are cameras now that will give you nice results, but I wouldn't necessarily want to use those. Oh, so for video, use your phone, because it's still better. Yeah, right. Video technology for mirrorless cameras and DSLRs has taken a long time to improve. Go up to 16,000 and look decent. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know like what I use generally with this, but I'm not doing super low light photos usually. Mostly I go to conventions like anime conventions, sci-fi or comic conventions, take photos of cosplayers and stuff. So I've got a bunch of videos on the YouTube channel for that. So these ones. So the Z5 mostly for that. But yeah, a lot of stuff on here from old cameras and various things. I do have an example of APS-C camera. So this is a Sony ZV-E10. This is a APS-C sized sensor camera. And then that's how do you store photos? 100 gigabytes. Yeah, I can show you an example. So this is going to be the size of sensor of the 50D. So you can see the sensor in there. And then if we compare this one, but obviously full frame stuff, everything about it's more expensive. Right. So here's the difference between those two. There we go, kind of get the light on it. So quite a bit larger area for the full frame ones. Yeah. But the reality is the difference here is like one stop, if you know that term, of light. Usually. I mean, it depends on the era of the camera, like how old it is and stuff too. But these are fine. I use this for video a lot. Let's frame. It's going to be like one stop difference. I mean, the problem is the way that I would look at it with the depth of field difference is that I wouldn't, really isn't any depth of field difference. It's more about like the idea of it gets cropped because of the difference in sensor size. So imagine if I take a photo with this full frame camera and then like I'd imagine cropping it in post to get the APS-C size one. You're just cutting out what the lens would potentially give you with the different size sensor. So it does look, will look like it's different in depth of field. Maybe I can do a visual example. But the aperture doesn't technically change. And the depth of field doesn't technically change. See if I can find a good example. I might have described it that poorly, but I'm sure there's a lot of good options here. Yeah, so I think this is a good... So see how this is not any different? Imagine this is the full frame camera and this is the APS-C camera. You can see how this does not change at all between the two. So it's basically the same thing. It's that the difference is that the APS-C is you're getting this. Yeah. This is a really nice example. because it's literally the same thing. It's just that the APS-C one's not capturing everything. They make it confusing with APS-C crop lenses. So better for macro. I don't think it would. The idea that people say for telephoto and macro and like anything with more, you want more detail, kind of, sort of, because the only reason that they say that, and I guess the reason that it kind of makes sense is that, for example, this camera that's APS-C, oops, so this is, I think, 24 megapixel APS-C, that's the smaller one. And then this one is 12 megapixel. It's a bigger sensor, but you can resolve more detail on the smaller sensor with this because there's more pixels, right? So kind of like your phone. But the problem is that it's gonna get less light for this smaller sensor one than this. With your phone might say that it's 200 megapixel, but chances are, this is 12 versus 200, but you capture so much more light. So it's going to be higher quality in some ways. Not to say that your phone might capture more detail than this 12 megapixel full frame camera, but it would depend. So yeah, you might benefit using an APS-C camera, because it is high resolution usually than the full frame one. But for the given area of the sensor, that's kind of what they try to imply when people say that. Oops, there we go. But anyways, I think this is a great example for the depth of field crop differences. Let me see if they have any other good stuff on here. Yeah, whoever made this is better at explaining it than I am, so I'd check out their website. This is F-Stoppers. They've got a YouTube channel. There's also Adorama has a bunch of photography videos that are nice. Now you're saying the 200 megapixel is really only useful under very bright lights. Yeah, good point. True. Let's say crop versus full. Probably get an old cheap camera, have fun experiment with that. Once I get better at grading, I'll try something proper. Yeah, that's a good idea. Good way to look at it. So that 50D you mentioned might be a fun option. Get the 50 millimeter f1.8 lens for EF. That might be a fun one to use. But with the 50D, it's a APS-C, so you might want to get like a 35 millimeter f1.8. I'm not sure how much those cost. Just so it's a bit wider. But I would I would consider, before getting specific lenses, think of what type of photos you want to take first, and then look at the focal length and see if it'll do what you want. You can calculate what your phone is giving you, and then compare that to the focal length on a APS-C camera or something. So with the right math, which I don't know offhand, you would be able to figure out what you might want to buy with the dedicated camera and lenses. Let's see if AI is good at describing this. Sensor differences. And these are not describing what I was talking about. Oh, you don't know what niche you want to get into. It's everything from plain photography to macro photos, like the flower stuff. Yeah, the challenge there though is with expense in those specific types. So macro stuff, there is a cheaper way to do that. I have an example. Sure I'm on the right screen. Whoops, this one. All right. So these are macro tubes. So this goes between the camera and the lens, and this allows you to focus closer and get more magnification up close. And this is 2 of them here. So actually I used this in that article I was editing to do kind of the mock product photography stuff. So for example, let's see what it looks like. These specific ones, these are for the Nikon Z mount. So I take this thing, and then generally you would use this with a lens that has a focal length that's not super wide angle, because if it's really wide angle, it's not going to work right. So this is a 85 millimeter f1.8 7 Artisan's lens for the Z mount, or Z mount, as they say in probably your area. So that goes on to the lens, locks in. Now it's got this tube on the back. And then this goes on the camera, which is kind of... Alright, so I can align things here. So now this has the tube right here, and this is so much cheaper than getting a dedicated macro lens, and you're still going to get close focus with something like this. Oh, what webcam are you using? Yeah, it's a mirrorless camera. I don't have a view that I can show because I don't have the camera set up, but it's a Sony a6000, and then it's piping the HDMI from the camera. The lens is a Sigma. Is it 18 to 50? I can't read it from here. I think it's this. It's an APS-C camera. I can show you like on here what it is. Yeah, it's not a webcam. You can get some webcams that look kind of similar. I think there are a handful of. They're pretty expensive though. They have like a little bit larger of a sensor and such. So I'm using Sony a6000. See what the used price is. Let's go to MPB. You probably have access to this website in your area, MPB. That's the used camera seller. I wouldn't recommend this one for the webcam. Whoops, I typed it in wrong. Oh, I got it in here anyways. Because it does have some downsides, but it works well enough and it has nice autofocus. So if we look at the cheapest, Oh, that's where you found the 20-pound camera? Yeah. So this one says well used, but it should be functional. Here's a good for 400. So that'd probably be 310 pounds for this thing. Yeah, the exchange rate, the dollar has really flopped these days. So you guys are better off right now. So that would be 310 pounds for the A6000. This is a fine camera for photos, but obviously that's pretty expensive. We're like how much money you want to spend. And there's no lens, so you have to consider the lenses too. This is an APS-C camera. It's very similar to this one, but this is a newer one. This is the ZV-10. This is more video focused than the one I'm using as a webcam. But yeah, I have a video setup for this thing that I use for YouTube videos. So I just used the A6000 because it was cheaper for me to buy at the time. And obviously it's functional enough. And the lens that I have on there, which is the Sigma, I think it was 18/2.8. Contemporary. This one. So this is a pretty expensive lens. Although it might be cheaper in your area considering the tariff problem in the United States. So that would be 500 pounds for the excellent condition one. So you're looking at, I don't know, 900 pounds. Yeah. Sigma has really nice lenses, generally. This one, this is APS-C specific, so if you were to eventually want to go to full frame, that's the downside, is this lens it's not going to cover full frame. So that's the downside of this lens, but it's still pretty expensive, considering. 3000 millimeter. The gigantic Sigma. I don't know if it's 3000. Bigma. I think it's called the big, like the slang. There's a 500. Oh, it's 205 to 500 millimeters. Cheap kit lens. Yeah. Okay, so probably the one you're thinking of is 200 to 500 millimeter, 2.8. Yeah, there might be a 3000 millimeter, but I'm not sure. It would be probably super huge. 200. So the reason this one is so big for that focal length range, see if I can find a good photo of it. Yeah, this guy. The reason this is so big is because of the aperture and the focal length combination. So 500 millimeter f2.8 is a very fast lens for what it is in the focal length. That's basically the reason why it's so huge, is the combination of it goes to 500 and it's f2.8. So you could see lenses that are 200, 2.8, they're going to be much smaller. So if we look at some random, I don't know if this even exists. Yeah, so I mean, a 70 to 200 2.8 is going to be a much smaller lens. And that one's pretty big. But this is still much smaller than that big green Sigma one. I don't know if there is a 3000 millimeter. Whoops. It's probably... I mean, also consider that Sigma lens, the big green Sigma lens, is for a full frame camera. So that would be like this Sony one, or the Nikon camera. So the reason a camera like this goes to 3000 millimeter is that the sensor is really small in this camera. I did a video or two of one of these in the past. But yeah, this is kind of like a compromise type of camera to get that much of a focal length. Because the sensor in here is probably the same size as the one in your phone. But then they kind of, they're unique and they are useful for what they are. But the problem was, if you were to go to 3000 millimeters, you're going to have issues with the atmosphere, and it's going to mess up your photos zooming that much. I'm trying to think of what terms they use to... atmospheric distortion. So like at 3000 millimeters. Let me see if this article is good. Whoops. So this person bought a 400 millimeter 3.5 with a 2x teleconverter. The minimum focus distance, that was, I'm pretty sure that was the Nikon I can't remember the name of it offhand. I did do a video on that. Oh, P1000. P... Here it is. Technical specs, we've got... So the minimum focus they're going to list here is probably for the wide angle. Focal range. So it's 23 feet, it's 7 meters minimum for that specific camera. At the... Let's see if it's 3000. Yeah, it does go to 3000 millimeter equivalent. Yeah, so 7 meters is the minimum at 3000 equivalent. It's technically 539 millimeters based on the sensor size, but this is the calculation for... It's confusing, you know, with all the crop factor stuff. But yeah, 7 meters. I mean, this camera is fun to use and such, but it is very niche. And the quality is not going to be like super amazing. I do have an old video on it, but I wasn't able to use it like at the long telephoto stuff very much because it was at a camera shop that I recorded trying it out. Whoops, let me go to... yeah, so here it is. That's kind of what it looks like. I have it muted, but Yeah, so I did an example of the sensor size comparison. So this is a 1-inch sensor. It's kind of hard to. This is much smaller than the cameras that I showed you here. Even that sensor. So this is the sensor inside here is even smaller than that. Let me see if I show in another example. Probably don't even show full frame. No. But anyways, it's tiny. Relative. It's kind of that size sensor. It's a cool camera though. It's kind of how large it is. I don't know if I have a zoom example here. Yeah. This camera shop no longer exists. The guy retired. Anyways, I think I'm gonna head out. It's been nice talking. But probably gonna work on more stuff and such. Anyways, peace. Again, nice talking. Hopefully that was helpful a little bit. Yeah. See ya. See